Hey everybody, Jason with So Percussion. This is our Brooklyn Bound podcast, and this is the first conversation I'm having leading up to the first Brooklyn Bound of 2021. That's kind of exciting to say. 2021, February 4th, 7 o'clock. Multiple things are happening that night, but one of the coolest things is that the Bergamot Quartet is coming back. And today I'm going to talk with Irene Hahn and Lita Fink. How are you guys?
We're good.
Good, thanks.
Yeah, pretty okay. Like, I feel like asking that question over the last year has been just like, hard to answer. Um,
Just gotta get it out of the way.
yeah, maybe it's like slightly better to answer now. I don't know. It's okay.
I'm
I can answer that honestly today,
so
actually.
that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I was
Just
gonna
telling
say,
Irene about my good coffee. So that's a good way to start the day.
cheers. How do you make your coffee? Let's start with that. What?
Oh man, now that you ask,
Mm.
I just got an AeroPress and it's been a life changer.
Love it.
Highly recommend.
Love it. I got into the AeroPress game maybe a year or so ago, and the idea was that it would be great to bring on tour.
Mm.
Because you can bring, I don't know, you can bring do you have the hand crank thing that fits inside the AeroPress?
No, I just have like the plunger thing.
Yeah. But then to grind your beans, you can get a hand cranker.
Oh wow,
Yeah. So me and Beth ended up on camping trips doing that thing,
that's awesome.
Yeah. The idea was to bring it on tour, but then touring doesn't happen anymore. So,
Just camping.
just camping. Irene, do you drink coffee?
I do drink coffee.
Yeah.
I am really bad at making coffee. My roommate usually just brings me the coffee she makes, and then I just drink it.
That's a great roommate.
Yeah, she is.
Get that. And are you still in Baltimore, Irene?
No, I moved to back to New York in September. Yeah, so now I'm in Brooklyn.
Welcome. And
Thank
I
you.
think I knew, Lita, last time we talked, I think you were making that move.
Yeah, I was right in the throes of it. So I've been here for a little over a year now.
Lovely. So can you tell us, let's talk about the Bergamot story more than your personal stories right now. Usually I ask what was your beginnings in music? But I guess maybe with a quartet, like what was the quartet's beginnings in music? How did you all meet each other and where, why, how, when? I guess
Um,
who?
What?
What?
well, Sarah and Lita already knew each other, right? Um,
Yeah, Sarah and I were at Peabody together doing our undergrads. And with a third friend of ours, we were like the three people at Peabody who were really excited about new music, and we were like, let's start a string quartet. And it was actually very fortuitous how we met Irene because we just were having an impossible time finding a cellist that wanted to play new music. Um, we'd asked so many people, and then the school year ended. I came back from my master's. Sarah was in her senior year, and I went to my advising meeting at the beginning of the school year, and I mentioned to my advisor that I was trying to start a quartet but didn't have a cellist, and he was like, "Oh, I'm talking to a cellist right after you. Maybe she'll be down." And it was Irene. And so I got a Facebook message from this like strange girl.
I was like, hello.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, I love it. And so Amy was already there, was already.
So Amy is actually our second violist. We started working with her when our original violist graduated and moved away. Amy came on board just in time to play Black Angels with us. So that was our first adventure in this iteration of Bergamot Quartet.
um I feel like there's a storied history of quartets learning Black Angels early on and then becoming wonderful new music advocates for all the. So what do you have to do in Black Angels? You have to bow glasses, you have to hit gongs and maracas. Were we talking about maracas? I remember talking about, yeah, you had different, you're
Well,
like looking for maracas sometime
we
maybe.
didn't have maracas, so well, in our first performances, so I made like a thing in a glass jar with rice in it, and that worked.
Yeah, totally.
Everybody only had one maraca, I think, and then
I think they
the
were
ones that
lying
we
to
tried
you.
to order were like the baby shakers, and I was like, I don't think we should play with those.
So the first ones we got from Amazon were like actual coconuts stuck to
Oh,
sticks.
yeah.
They were so stupid
They
looking.
were so big.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so great. Wow. Is there a movement of that piece that's all bowed glasses or?
It's the so the viola and the two violins are bowing the glasses, and then the cello it plays
Yes,
the.
the cello. Yes, yes. So one of the last times we were on tour, we were in Illinois and we were on the same festival, and Kronos was playing, and it was like Kronos was doing this show that was like it was along with the documentary. It was a Sam Green thing. I think this is what we saw, and it was kind of like a retrospective of the quartet. So I remember hearing them play that movement. It's so cool. That's awesome. Okay, great. So this is to peg. This is in Baltimore. You all are going to Peabody Conservatory. This is 2000.
17, I think.
I don't remember.
It's 2017.
A handful of years ago, and you guys were so excited about, like, you all wanted to do new things. You're at a conservatory that maybe most conservatories are doing older things. That's the name conservatory, and you all were like, let's do new things. So you did Black Angels, and what else? What was the momentum?
I think when we went to Banff, we like got to work with all these great mentor quartets, and it was just such an amazing experience that we just kind of continued from there. And then we got to go back, and it just kind of been that.
And I think even before Banff, like deciding to go to apply to Banff was kind of our commitment to each other, because we had been playing together for like a semester and a half and having a great time, and we had been playing shows outside of Peabody also. It just felt like it was growing. And then someone asked us, like, do you plan to continue this after school? And we were like, oh, yeah. So then we were like, can we get along for 3 weeks together in a really intensive situation? And we were like, probably, let's try it out. And then we did, and it was great, and now we're here.
Was it all great, or was it mostly great, or was it?
Honestly, it was all great.
Oh,
It's all great.
Yeah.
No,
Except I got mountain sickness the first year when I got there. That was not fun.
I've never been to Banff. I so want to. I really, really, really want to. And you all met Jack Quartet there, yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because now I don't know why I asked you why if you were still in Baltimore. I mean, of course, you're in New York because you all are studying at Manus or at the New School or however.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a fair question. School's virtual right now.
Yeah, I guess it is a fair question. Yeah. But with the Jack Quartet, that's so cool. Awesome.
We're super lucky. It's been amazing, even despite the virtual nature of it. We've been rehearsing in person since we all moved, and just having like Zoom coachings and stuff. But it's been really great.
It's a wild time for all that. My goodness. Yeah, I've been on the other end of some of those virtual coachings, and it's such a strange thing to figure out, like what's good to do right now. You know, not everything is good to do. Like there are good things, and what can we learn? You know. But so back to Baltimore really quick. I feel like because the first time I heard about you all and we met was through Judah Adachi, and I feel like, is it possible that some of your early shows were through his awesome Evolution series? It feels like he's just doing such great stuff, and I remember I forget who. In addition to the show that I was down there for, I know Jesse Montgomery was doing some stuff, and I think did you play Jesse's music? And I know Gemma Peacock was on the same series. I don't know if you played some of Gemma's music or
Did, yeah.
like there was a lot of interesting stuff happening.
Yeah, Judah was a big part of our early quartet days and continues to be, honestly. We've been working a lot with his young composers program that he started called Junior Bach this year from afar. But yeah, the Evolution series is a really incredible place for new music in Baltimore. And Judah's really, really great at programming and bringing in a wide variety of living artists from many different styles and ages and places. So yeah, I think a big part of our early quartet and performing experiences were through his series.
That's awesome. Are there any particularly memorable Evolution experiences to share?
Oh man. The first one that comes to mind for me is Julia Wolf.
Oh yeah.
We played her quartet Dig Deep. That piece was crazy to learn. Although I guess the Jesse Montgomery concert was maybe a bit crazier because we learned all of her string quartets in like a week and a half.
That's great. Before I started recording, we were talking about learning music quickly, getting ready for this premiere that we'll talk about. but I love that I can say so and bergamots. Not. I'm sorry. Every time I search for your email, I just say bergamots because that's how I talk about you all. Like, oh, I'm talking to the bergamots, but you're singular, the Bergamot Quartet.
One bergamot.
Yeah, just a bergamot. The four of you make up one singular bergamot. But another thing that So and BQ share is that we too have played Julia Wolf's string quartet. We number 5 was written for us, and we take very much pride in that. I forget dig deep. She has 4 more, I suppose. Is that right? Is dig deep? I don't know dig deep so well.
I know she has. I'm not sure what the 4th one is actually. When we played Dig Deep, she had 3. We picked it out of her 3 that were available.
Well, I may be spreading rumors that we have the 5th written for us. Maybe it's the 4th, but I think it's the 5th. Maybe something.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that's the one where you're playing like stringed instruments that are kind of like lying horizontally.
Yeah, viola. I play viola.
Are they? Is it actually quartet instruments, or is it like?
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll have to share. That would be so fun to play Julia Wolf string quartets on the same show. Yeah, and because Beth, you all know Beth, is a violist. I felt like I had to play the viola part. Wonderful. The only terrifying thing about it, well, 2 things, and this conversation is not about me, but I'm going to share an anecdote, is that like Julia was writing it, I think her daughter played violin, and so she was working on the violin, and she turned the violin around, and she was like rubbing the back of the violin to make like a kind of, this kind of sound. And then all of our instruments were lacquered and like didn't make any sound when you did that. Like I have like an $80 viola or something, but like it wouldn't make any sound on the back. And so, we take sandpaper and we like, rub off the lacquer. And even though I know that this instrument, costs less than a drum that I hit, still it feels like, what am I doing?
Sacrilege.
It feels like sacrilege. I think that's why part of the reason why the piece is fun is because I don't know, you see those instruments and you have this history that you all come out of. The string quartet is a very serious one in classical music. But I also thought I would love showing up to gigs with like just just a viola on. But I just feel like such an imposter, I like walk into the concert hall and I'm just like, I'm not
when you mentioned
that's how I felt with Black Angels. Carrying around the rock
meeting we had, and someone said something about you playing viola, and I didn't realize that was, I guess, like you play viola for that piece. But I was like, oh, Jason plays viola. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't really. Well, before we get to this new project, I'd actually love to ask you all how, because I think we've thought more recently about what our lineage is, like as a percussion quartet and kind of in contemporary music and in experimental music, like we haven't thought about our lineage so much, and it's a very young lineage in classical music compared to what a string quartet is. But we've started to think more and more about it and kind of see how we fit into it and what parts of it we're really proud of and want to continue, and what parts are more problematic and we need to question. Your lineage is much older. How do you all think about the string quartet? Is it exciting to be a part of a lineage that's that old? Is it scary because it feels like there's, I don't know, sometimes we feel like there's baggage with a longer lineage, and it's harder to do something fresh, feeling like, you're judged against, Beethoven or all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear both.
Those are questions that we ask ourselves a lot, actually, about like we come from this lineage of like tradition, and we're playing new music, and that's also like kind of been around, but also like thinking about how we can make this sustainable in terms of repertoire for ourselves. And yeah, those are things we are working on, kind of.
Is it like, when you think about it, Irene, is it exciting to be rethinking those things, or is it like intimidating, or
I guess
does it make you angry or excited or mad? Like what?
Both. Yeah, it's it's really exciting to be part of something that like has been around for so long, and like to be able to play our instruments, and like I just like love the way they sound, and like it's been my dream to be in a string quartet, but it's also like intimidating to kind of um revisit kind of the way that new music is has been going and is going. And also like it's funny because like some of my friends who aren't musicians, they like don't know what new music is exactly, so they think I'm in like a rock band because like some of the rap that I play. So it just, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, new music
Yeah.
yeah, new music is a funny term. Um, because we all know what it means. Yeah, but I find myself saying it less and less, saying things like experimental or which also are, like all the terms are problematic. But new music is so funny because most of the music we listen to, we hear on the radio, anything, it's all new, you know, like what, you know, like so new music is a funny, yeah, it's a very classical reference or something, you know.
Mhm.
What about you, Lita?
For me, it's a dream come true, honestly. I like very much had a goal my whole life of being in a string quartet. Like I've always loved chamber music. Um, but the last few years I've been getting pretty disillusioned with traditional classical music in a lot of ways. Um, and so I'm really grateful that I can maintain some sort of connection with that lineage, which I've been so immersed in my whole life, um, without being beholden to all the things about it that I dislike. And that's really a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, because there is such a clear standard for string quartets, it doesn't feel like it's that hard to challenge it,
Mm.
if that makes any sense. Like it's so clear cut, like the repertoire that people think of when they think of a string quartet is so specific to like 19th century traditional classical music. Um, and there's so much that stringed instruments can do. There's so much that the four of us can do specifically, like with our like specific skills, with our voices, with our bodies, whatever. And coming, like Irene said, from just like the reason this ensemble is still being written for is because it sounds really good. Like these four instruments just work together really well. So it just feels like we have so much kind of open to us if we were able to like push on some boundaries and ask some questions about what we're doing. And it allows me to kind of realize my dream of both playing chamber music and play and like creating new music.
I love that. We were doing a Zoom hang with a younger percussion quartet the other day, and they asked us about what our original kind of like mission statement was, um, because their mission statement felt so much more conscious of the world and with their place in the world, and being mentors to other, like a very kind of large-minded global mission statement in the best ways. And asking about our early mission statement, it was very much like, you know, um, string quartets can play long, awesome pieces of music. We only have really short, not so great pieces of music. Why can't we have longer, more substantial pieces of music also? You know, it was very like, you know, percussion centric, like classical music, like, you know, within this lineage, we want to do this bigger thing. And in some ways, like there's been a fun percussion explosion in the last something years where you don't have to worry about that anymore. And so it's been cool to think in this more fun and bigger way. And I'm feeling like some of what So does is we think about contributing to a repertoire, and some of what So does feels very much like what can the four of us do, and whether anybody else ever does it or not, it doesn't really matter. And I heard you, Lita, in your answer maybe speak to that a little bit, saying like, you know, yeah, we'd love to contribute new things to the repertoire, but what can the four of us do, and our voices and bodies, and, you know, thinking about it more than just this instrument. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. And
You
one
all,
thing too I wanted to mention, sorry, I think this is important. We have we have this strong awareness that like the kind of traditional route to a career in chamber music is through competitions, and we really have pushed against that. And a big priority of ours has been collaboration. And I think kind of an overall like hope of ours is that we can um, I feel pretentious saying set an example because we're obviously not the only ones doing this, but like be part of a model for like a really inclusive way of making music. um, that doesn't involve just like getting to the top of a really strict hierarchy. And that can look like a lot of different things, but I think that's really core to like the way that we operate.
I think that's awesome. And that's maybe similar to what I was just saying, like this other group. Like I think coming of age as a group right now is really exciting, because I think there is yeah, I didn't feel like you were pretentious at all saying set of mind. I feel like those things are really like I mean, maybe it's just, I mean, I feel like I'm a role model to a very small number of people, but I want to be a role model to that number of people, right? Like we're all role models to a certain number of people. And so whoever those are, however we can set example for I feel like that's all really positive. And to have that in mind as you're starting something, to me feels really powerful. Um, and anybody who's listening to this conversation that doesn't know the chamber music scene, I think you're totally right that the history of it has been like, oh, this group won the Naumburg competition or the Concert Artists Guild or whatever it is, and so early on we did one competition. It was like the first time we really kind of had an argument about like, why are we doing this, um, and in general it ended up being a cool experience. Like in general, percussionists I think aren't ultra competitive, because I think everybody feels like underdogs in the chamber music scene a little bit. So we made a lot of friends. But that model of like winning a competition and being given shows or something, luckily we didn't win. Like, that just feels like such a like, what is that? That doesn't feel like it's the path that forward. I love the fact that you're thinking about that so much. I want to talk about the show coming up. And we've been hanging out on Zoom more often these days because we're co-commissioning a piece together that we don't know the name of yet, as we were talking about before press record. But awesome composer, awesome friend, Darian Thomas is writing a flexible quartet that can be done in many different iterations. I don't even think we know all of the iterations that it can be done in, and I guess we don't know that it's a quartet because I think we're gonna try to take on an octet version of it someday too. But right now, for the premiere, we're doing two different quartet versions. And at this moment of taping, I think we have all the music, at least for the premiere, which is exciting, and we're all hard at work on it. What for us, I think this has been, we haven't done anything like this. I think our process, our idea of commissioning flexible music this year came from, oh, we write a lot of music like this, but we've never commissioned something that could be flexible instrumentation or flexible in other ways. But I think it's so exciting. We feel so excited that we're like partnering with the string quartet to commission a piece. It's like awesome, but also feels totally like, what are we doing? Like, how do you guys feel?
Same. This is pretty new for us, and we are super excited to be working with another quartet who we really admire, who is also like so different from what we're just like very different quartets. It's really cool, and Darian's amazing, and the piece is crazy and really fun, and an adventure to put together.
What about you, Irene?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Well, I was just thinking that actually the way we've been like kind of starting this piece and like working remotely with each other, we're lucky that this piece kind of allows that, because we all have like we can try out the different roles and we can kind of just like brainstorm together. So I feel like this experience has been like super positive, and I also love like when we meet with the composer and we talk about the piece, like hearing, like Lita said, like how different everything is like within our quartets, and like I don't know, it's been so fun so far. So I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, it's been like a fun sharing. Like, so for context to anybody watching or listening, like we've been, I don't know, every other week or something, we'll get together and kind of each of our quartets will have worked on a part of it, and it turns into a kind of sharing, hey, we tried it this way, and hey, we tried it this way. And it's really cool because I think so we think early on, we I'm not sure we ever studied with a string quartet like you're studying with Jack or something, but we would go and play for a lot of different string quartets and try to get feedback from folks in that tradition, because in terms of chamber music, it's such a solid, like it's the tradition, but then listening so we feel kindred in a lot of ways in terms of approach to chamber music. But then to hear like, wow, the way we each make sound is so different. And I think we're hearing you all play and just like feeling the tactileness of like what it takes to play these lines. And then being like, wait, I want some of that on the vibraphone. What's this? But it's
That's
been really
like
cool to
these
hear your.
albums. I'm like, wow, they sound really good. It sounds so easy. And we're
It's so intuitive.
Sounds so effortless. Yeah, and then we're all like, as part of the piece, we're singing, and we're speaking, and so just hearing our different quartets approach it has been it's awesome because I think about this so much. I think with the music I write too, and like how a piece of music can be yours, but also the people that are playing it. And so watching Darian go through that. So for context, there's four roles, as Irene was kind of saying. There's a you're gonna have to help me out here. There's chaos role,
the individual,
individual,
historian, and the newscaster.
right? And have you so in our quartet, I think we started off learning each role for the first section or two, and then we've started to kind of like find our some of it I think personality wise, and some of it like what instruments we have around, So like I've settled into the individual role. I think last time we were hanging, you all were kind of settling in, but kind of still trying some things out.
I think we've officially settled by now.
What are your roles?
I'm chaos.
I'm the newscaster.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're both the speaking roles, or
Yeah.
done by speaking or playing clips of others speaking.
Yeah.
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 Gathering materials from the internet.
Yeah.
The playing parts are really cool too. I like really enjoyed like when we switched and we were trying out. I was like, wow, it's so fun.
Yeah. I've started to enjoy the individual and historian roles are more playing oriented. So one I guess one thing about the piece, and one thing about not all of Darian's music, but a lot of Darian's music, is that it I think since we met him, a lot of his music has been socially conscious or topical in some way. He wrote a piece for us called Stefan Clark, which was like used the cell phone footage of the police in Sacramento shooting Stefan Clark, and using that the words and the sound of the gunfire, like using it in the piece. Like he oftentimes does things that are socially conscious or politically aware, and so in this instance he gives some of that up to us as the players, and specifically I guess up to the newscaster and the chaos component. You all are the ones that kind of bring that, and he gives some examples, but it feels to me like it's very open as to where we all want to go. I think So has decided where we want to go, I think. Have you all decided where you're going with that content?
I think so. Since we got the last part, we've been kind of like thinking about how to kind of combine the beginning with the end, and I think we're just starting to narrow like the subject down, but today we're gonna talk about it in rehearsal. And
Yeah, we had picked a subject, but with the addition of the final part and just like what the vibe of it is, some questions have come up about the efficacy of what we have thus far in relation to that. So yeah, it's still kind of amorphous.
Yeah. And what was your topic so far?
So our topic that we chose was the anti-Asian sentiment at the beginning of COVID. So that yeah, so that's like the first subject we chose for like our rehearsal videos, and that worked, and then now we're just exploring.
Because I always thought it worked really well, and then the music that we all just got, there's kind of a
There's
you're
just like
looking for
coming
something,
together part,
yeah,
like
something positive but
yeah,
big around that
yeah.
topic. So the most logical thing, it seems like, that everybody, the way Darren's talked about it, is like, if there are big protests or something with lots of people chanting something positive around that topic. I can see why, looking for that. I
Yeah.
think we haven't Josh in our group is just really, whenever we do stuff with like words, or when we write music together, he writes text a lot, and I think he loves kind of curating those things.
Mm.
So I think without us talking about it so much, like I think our last versions have been very much about white supremacy, I think, and it feels like the four of us being white men, I guess that feels logical in some ways. I know yeah, yeah. My, not only white men, I have this but it's not, I was gonna say it's irrational, but I don't think it's irrational. Like my father's lineage is from Germany, but not only Germany, like Bavaria, like very much, you know, if I find a way to dig deep, I'm gonna find things out that are just terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it feels very much like yeah, if you know, if you didn't know me, my heritage could really just scream some of those things. So I think so's version has been going to that, but we haven't gotten to the last part yet, so we'll see where the chaos positive is in that. But yeah, I can't wait.
I'm thinking just now, like, I think we were coming up against like, okay, there weren't like, sorry, my cat needs to stop doing that. Yeah. There weren't like large scale protests like against like anti-Asian hate crimes. So it's hard to find what Darien describes as chaotic good. But I was kind of thinking that like we could broaden it to include just like, Nina, stop it.
Nina?
I'll be right back.
Irene, is her cat Nina?
Nina, yeah, and she's crazy.
In the best possible way.
I'll just give her a little bit. Anyway, yeah, we could broaden it to include just like examples throughout history of people overcoming dangerous stereotypes, stuff like that, and like just look a little broader and apply it both to now and to historical events. And yeah, I mean, the piece gives us flexibility to interpret the whole thing in a really fluid way, which I think is a big element of the piece's power. We can make it both really personal and really global.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it feels like one of these pieces that will probably change over time for all of us. Yeah, each time we play it, it can morph into something either more topical or more historical or whatever it is. Well, I'm very excited about it. The lineup for Brooklyn Bound, as I think you all know, there's some other cool things on the night for sure, but we're going to get to share our two different versions of Darian's piece as a premiere. And then I think we're going to get to share our two different versions of a piece of mine called June that you guys jumped in on at the beginning of quarantine and made your version, which is one of the, it's just such a beautiful version and such a cool video. It's kind of like a little postcard from from last spring or something. So we're very excited about that. But as we wind down this conversation, I've been asking everybody two questions that we can do lightning round. Not really, but one is more serious than the other. One is just, I think as artists, like trying to get our head around like this moment is crazy. Like I think thinking back to our early quarantine moment, this June project was the first thing we did, just trying to figure out how to make music in this moment and why we would make music in this moment and how important it is to make music, but also how important it would be to be doing other things with our time, just like how to think about this thing as around COVID, but then around larger issues like anti-Asian violence and the Black Lives Matter movement and just like these, bigger conversations. What have you all thought individually or as a quartet, like what your role is at this moment, or why you get up each morning and are still so excited to play music, and how you deal with the moment? It's an easy one. I guess it's not a lightning round. It's
very slow lightning round.
Yeah.
You go first, Lita.
Well, I mean, that's definitely still a conversation. yeah, I mean, last summer we were expecting to be apart for a few weeks. Then we were apart for 5 months in different parts of the country, and we had a lot of opportunity to talk instead of play. um, and I think as a quartet, something that we came to was, well, okay, we're not like qualified to like solve any of the world's, like economic or social or environmental problems. But what we can do is just like comment on them and engage with them and make art that will encourage. I mean, like over at the end of the day, I think our main goal is just to make art that encourages people to like find empathy and listen. Um, and like functionally, that's kind of led us to more like multimedia projects, and also just thinking about equity in programming, which has been a concern of ours since we got together, I think. But we're just starting to look deeper into ways that we can be educators and learn ourselves in the most equitable ways possible. And yeah, I mean, I'm personally still like really unsure of like where performance sits in society right now. Like, 'cause we're not even allowed to perform live in New York State right now. um, and I think it's pretty clear to most of us that live streams don't cut it in terms of filling that void. Um,
I mean, except for Brooklyn Bound, but I know what you mean.
well, no, I mean,
I'm just-
no shade on Brooklyn Bound.
no, totally.
And I'm super glad that we get to do live streams. And like, I mean, you guys put on wonderful live
I'm
streams.
joking. I'm totally
But
joking. We're in total agreement.
you know, while we're really lucky to have something that we can do, it's never going to be the same as in-person interactions, of course. This isn't a very clear answer, I know.
It's an honest answer. I think it's a lot to digest, right? And yeah. Where's your head, Irene?
Huh?
How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I don't know. This year has been crazy. I think I'm really lucky that we were able to still like do stuff and we're able to rehearse in person. Um, it feels weird to be able to do that because I know that a lot of ensembles aren't doing that, and I feel really lucky about that. But yeah, like Lita was saying, like when there's like a global pandemic and then there's like these issues that we're talking about when we're like performing this piece, like we don't like, it's hard to know if we're that useful in the world. So it is kind of hard, but I don't know, personally for me, like thinking about the subject we chose for now, the anti-Asian sentiment, I have been thinking a lot, when like the Black Lives Matter movement started, and about how I actually am kind of privileged in a way where like I don't want to say anti-Asian like racism isn't like terrible, but I'm just saying like I just realized like in ways I am learning a lot about, even if I'm part of like a minority, it's just not the same. And kind of thinking about that in our programming and like moving forward, like in like what I choose to play going forward. And I don't know, it's a lot of things to think about, and it's also like a lot of things to think about when like you're also afraid of like catching COVID and dying. So, so
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. So
I think it's
But it's
also.
also, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just thinking it's at this point people are figuring out how to create music that is effective, like putting in these formats where we're putting it together virtually. Like the piece that Darian wrote for us, I think would be really hard to do live. I think it's possible, but And I'm not sure the extent to which he intended it to be done one way or the other, but it lends itself really well to being produced in this kind of virtual way for like an audio visual performance eventually, or not eventually, soon, next week. um, but and that it's going to be a really powerful piece, I think, and it's just really cool to be actively part of like really learning to reinvent ourselves as artists to express ourselves well at this moment.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
a really cool opportunity in some ways.
yeah. I think more and more, and I think I've said this, I know, in some of these conversations already with other folks, but I think so in the last 4 years, I guess, have actively been thinking about how gathering in a concert hall is such a special thing, and how sharing space and sharing ideas. We're so lucky when people come to our shows and commit to sharing that time with us and having an exchange, and so I guess I have some hope that once we're allowed to do that again, it will be very valued. But I agree. I think this, just having time to talk with bandmates, and it feels like you guys have had these conversations and have time to think about these things, is also really important, so that when it feels to me that when there is a normal again, it's not just normal, but we've actually digested some of these things, and start a little bit better, or a little bit more equitable, or a little bit along the paths we all want to be on. I know you all are jumping to your rehearsal, so this one will be a quick last question. But with that in mind, that we haven't been in the same space to like do concerts, I've loved to, and so has always kind of thought back to, these moments we've had on stage, whether they've been really kind of triumphant moments, or often for us they've been really like silly tragic moments, where the flower pot's broken, or whatever, the kind of the small tragedies that percussionists have all the time. Do you all have any fun, what are the, when the Bergamot Quartet is band sharing stories about your live shows, would each of you want to share one, or is it the same one? I can't tell.
Can I tell him about the
I think we're both thinking of the same thing. Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, so we were playing Dig Deep by Julia Wolf at a concert at a church. Um, we were playing, and it's like such a physical piece, and I'm just like looking at Lita because she's like conducting, and I just see her sweater um from the dress like pop open, and her dress fell off.
Oh no, Lena!
I was wearing like a halter top dress, and it came like unclasped, and with this piece is just like this. There's like no rest for like 15
You
minutes.
managed to put it back on.
Well, I had a cardigan on, and I managed to like in my one measure of rest in the whole piece, like button the cardigan. Oh, he stood up to bow, and I was just like clutching my dress.
The audience was like, "Did you know that Lita's dress came off?" I'm like, "Yes, I know."
I didn't completely flash the audience for the record, but very much almost.
We have none of those stories. That's remarkable. That's so great. That's a really, really good one. That could count for both of you, but if there's another fun story to share to lead us off into our 2021 wonderfulness.
Well, the next thing comes to mind for me, this isn't a mishap, but we did get to play one concert this school year on stage last semester in Maryland. We got to go to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and live stream a concert from their hall. And walking onto that stage after not having seen each other for a concert since March was so emotional. And I remember Irene just started fully crying.
We're in a hall.
Oh, that moment really stands out to me.
Oh, so meaningful. That's really, really great. Well, I can't wait till you all can, well, you are now in rooms together, but I can't wait until you guys are in rooms sharing your music with other people in the room. But in the meantime, I'm so excited about this February 4th. Let's get this one premiered first, and then I know we're scheming about this octet version, so we'll see how that goes later in the spring too. It'd be really, really fun. So thank you all for talking. Irene and Lita, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, for sure. And anyone watching this before February 4th, the show's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. There's a lot of other fun stuff on the bill as well. Some music by Caroline Shaw and Kendall Williams playing a solo pan set. So we're very pumped about it. We'll see you all then.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Good rehearsal.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.